Hello. And we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome once again. Let's turn up the volume. Okay. We are now live, and for my second Healing the World in the Mind of the Healer call, an opportunity for us to come together to create really the atmosphere, the environment that is most conducive to both health and immunity to illness. Because it is predominantly, well, even the strictest materialists these days recognize that the emotional state, the psychological state, the state of one's disposition has a powerful physiological effect on the nervous system. The more calm we are, the more confident we are, the more humble, really, and compassionate we are. There's a literal physical correlation between that and the immune system. There's other systems as well, physiologically. It is not just wishful thinking. It is not just some pie in the sky kind of thing. It's quite real. And I remember when I was a kid, growing up in the not progressive Midwest in the 50s and 60s. You're not hearing me. The audio bad, or is it just not there? And I used it this morning. It was perfect. Can somebody please describe? Is it like muffled, or is it just not there? Sound needs adjusting. Hey, Wildcat Drum. Hello, everyone. Dave. Can somebody give me some idea as to what exactly is the problem with the sound? I can try to start from scratch. It's choppy. Let me take a quick listen locally and see what's up. Locally. How about, yeah, it sounds a little distant. Doesn't it? All right, push that level up. Push the gain up. You guys are all on YouTube. Now, let me just take our time getting started here. Let me take a look on YouTube and just kind of check the sound here. Oh dear. Distant. Good word. No, everything's connected. I was just using it this morning. I'm wondering if it might be a bandwidth problem with YouTube. All right, I'm going to try something. Hold on. All right. Let's come up with the speaker. Hold on. Right. All right, how about now? All right, how about now? There we go. Yes. So many buttons to push. I have my behind me are all of the things. Much better. Good. Yes. Yeah. Sometimes in the system they just kind of switch sources on me. I don't even know what's happening. But I think we're good now.
Yay. Yeah, it was just receiving from the wrong thing. When I set up the console, I set everything, and sometimes, if there's a little glitch or something, it'll switch to like a default mic or something like that. So I had to make sure it had been in the proper place, and now it is. So, all righty then. Um, so yeah, there are an enormous amount of people. So if for some reason um, the video starts getting blurry or something, there's nothing I can do about it. That is both Facebook, and YouTube, FaceTube, and UBack are are both having bandwidth problems. This is just really unprecedented, but as long as we can hear it. Also, somebody asked me the other day about the replays. This is actually being broadcast. It's not a private. It's broadcast publicly. Um, so the replays are available on YouTube. They're obviously hard to find on Facebook, but they're on YouTube. I'm not seeing any comments from Facebook, so let me check really quick to see if it is shown up somewhere. Make sure the live feed is here as well. Yeah, there it is. All right. So, welcome to another day of our global retreat. A mandatory, divinely mandated global retreat. And our purpose to be here, our purpose to be in this together, is to turn it into a retreat. Wildcrat, is this like a live class or something? No, this is this was an idea I had to just get online at different times of the day, to try to accommodate different time zones. It's not a formal class that I'm doing here. I'm just gonna kind of get online and kind of get us all together to help create a powerful healing environment, an environment in which we can feel our own immunity to illness, and to really come together. Because when people come together, when spiritually attuned people come together, it really does create a very powerful environment. It creates an environment that is, well, it isn't limited just to our own energies. Any individual can create a very powerful energy, and some have more powerful energy than others. But when groups of people come together with a common intention, in this case, the intention is to love and embrace and compassion the world, it is amplified. It is more than the combined, power, inner energy of any of all the individuals combined. That's amplified because it's kind of a resonant effect. I don't know if you guys have ever, pretty much every object in the world has a resonant frequency. I remember, just for fun, when I was in college, I'd go into rooms that it had echo, and I would just hum until I found the resonant frequency. And when you find the frequency at which everything resonates, the thing will begin to resonate in harmony with it, and will actually be louder than the sound that's originating the vibration. So I would sit in rooms where people couldn't see me, and I would hum, and the whole room would begin to hum and shake, and you can't tell where it's coming from. It's a great image to hold in mind, that we are creating a resonance that like-minded souls around the entire planet will be vibrating in frequency with. May not recognize the source from which it's coming, and who cares? Right? There isn't a source, really. The ultimate source is outside of all of us. But the end result is that energy vibration, that signal, that intelligent, compassionate energy. It's not just this a material vibration. It's much, much more subtle and beautiful than that. And it resonates throughout the entire world, into the world itself, into the very earth itself, animals, trees, and every single individual. To recognize that you're kind of a node in this is a very powerful position to be in. Hello, Ava. Hello, Jane. Amy, good to have you here. Amy back in Las Vegas. Mary Sykes, great. Dale, I already said hello to you. Always checking on my sound. Thank you. Isabel, we really are in global retreat. Amen to that. Hello, Jeff. Wonderful. Glad you're here with me. Brian in Virginia. Yay. John Sheehan, Suketa, Wildcat Drums, Coyote, and Jeff again. Let's see. I think I've covered everyone. Say Cheryl. Hello. Lutpuk, LTTPUK. Dave Rose. Great. We just wanted to say hi to everybody. Again, this is nothing formal. This is not like I've got material to present to you. I'm just kind of go off on various, ideas that have meant a lot to me over my life, and invite you all to participate, to ask questions, to make comments, to bring up something that may be feeling urgent or troubling to you. As I was saying in the very beginning, before I realized that the sound sucked, we have a whole lot more power than we realized. When I was a kid, growing up in the Midwest of the United States, which is anything but progressive, right? And no out there ideas. And this was during the 50s and 60s. It wasn't until the late 70s, early 80s that the whole self-help movement got started. When I had my first major spiritual awakening, there were no books on this. There was one self-help book, right, on the psychology shelf, and that was it. That was all the books there were about psychology. It was a single shelf in the bookstore. It simply wasn't happening. And at that particular time, there was no knowledge of neuroplasticity, of mind-body relationship. There was in little pockets, but the general idea was, your DNA, it was the hand you were dealt when you started off. There was no way out of it. The mind, the emotions had nothing to do with illness. It was completely physiological. Boy, has that all changed in the intervening 60 plus years I've been around. What a world. I didn't have a TV when I was very, very little. Right? That was new, right? So the advances in technology have really been a physical manifestation of the extraordinary advances and growth in consciousness. And so Anne says there's no picture. Is anybody else? If anybody else is not seeing a picture right now, it's probably bandwidth if that's the case. But if you can hear me, let's just it'll be okay. Firdaus Nal, Johanna, hey, thank you, GP. Thank you for being here. Daryl is here. Wildcat says, I say I will feel like everyone is becoming closer from this thing going on. People are more loving. Life knows what it's doing. Also, the advice you had with me at skin conditioning is working. Very, very good. Very good. Yeah. We have to become extremely receptive. The materialistic approach, that approach that it's all just physiological, is really quite arrogant. It's really like we've got it all understood. If we really grasp how enormously vast and complex and subtle the universe is, we would blush terribly to ever say, "Oh, I understand." We don't. We don't. I, I learned that when I sought and had the deep intention to harmonize with life rather than dictate to it, like I knew what I was doing, the arrogant mind, that she began to reveal secrets to me. And I found that the environment that I created, the mental and emotional environment I created, was far more powerful than any kind of affirmation or assertion or metaphysical thing that I would attempt to apply. And so I went from feeling like I really knew what I was doing to openly admitting I know absolutely nothing. And now I just kind of go. I had a session this morning with somebody, and you just kind of show up, open, willing to listen, and it went some very interesting places I would never have thought to go if I was in charge of it. I think that the birthplace of inner reconciliation, which is the name I gave the process that I created, was when that began to dawn on me. That there was a much larger intelligence than my conceptual intelligence that was at play, that was far more capable than I was. In fact, it knew what was going on, and I didn't. I was guessing, right? From the psychological stuff that I learned and the self-help techniques that I learned, you think you have it down. Oh, this is what we got to do, right? And I would work with somebody basically trying to, show them the error of their ways, and little by little, that all began to just fall away, began to just kind of evaporate until there was just kind of this total willingness to just let life lead me. And so when I hear people, um, I go out. There's a few things that I have to do. I'm not being foolhardy, right? I'm not going to get into crowds. I'm not going to some mega church, that arrogantly believes they're somehow immune to this thing. They should read the three temptations of Christ. Thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God was one of them. When the devil really did a very similar thing to Christ. Hey, if you're the Son of God, just throw yourself off this building. God will take care of you. It sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? I see some of these preachers still filling up their churches and the like. It's like, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. Have faith, but honor the condition that we're in, honor other people's feelings, honor what's going, the general atmosphere, and if these people would genuinely pray instead of always having to make the spectacle with the music and the lights and everything. It's a pop show. Anyway, I'm kind of going off all over the place. Jeff says it's incredible you can go online by converting yourself into digital signaling, broadcasting globally, live. Mind-boggling. It is. And as I said earlier, the the advent the innovations and advances in technology are a representation of the opening of consciousness going beyond its own limitations. I mean, really, what we're doing right now, wasn't the Jetsons, right? When in early 60s, when I was a kid, and I thought, whoa, that's so clear, flying cars, and people can actually talk, right? And now here it is. 100 years ago, inconceivable. Like I said, when I was first born, I was pretty young when we got a TV. We didn't have a TV, right? People listened to the radio. Imagine what the radio must have looked like to somebody who'd never seen it before. Telegraph was amazing, right? You could, the fastest steamships you could get across the ocean in a month, right? So, I mean, you're like living somewhere for a month. Now, pretty much anywhere in a day, right? And actually, with supersonic travel, actually is anywhere in a couple hours. I mean, it's really, it it shows you that what's actually happening is an acceleration of consciousness dropping its artificial self-imposed limitations. was it Roger Banner? Yeah, Roger. Yeah, was it Banner? Yeah, Banner. Right. People had tried and tried and couldn't run faster than the 4-minute mile. Right. Finally, somebody does it, and now high school kids are doing it. Right. What was the limit? Was the limit real? No, it wasn't. The limit was completely self-imposed and culturally imposed. When I say self-imposed, it's not just you making stuff up, right? 99% of what you believe to be true has been installed in you by your culture. It isn't your choice at all. This is the cultural ego, right? Ego forms at every different level of organization. There's the personal ego, there's a family ego, there's a community ego, there's a state ego, a nationality ego, right? There's there's not a world one yet, but we're on our way, right? Which actually represents a step forward, right? Because what we're suffering from are egos in conflict. When we either have two choices: we dispose of the ego, we overcome it, which is the personal spiritual journey, or it expands to the infinite and includes everything. Either way, what happens is the boundary, which actually does define the ego, dissipates until there's nothing left. But my main focus here is not necessarily non-dual conversation. That's what I do on satsangs every Sunday. But just to help us all come together, to raise our level of confidence in the world, and actually to embrace this opportunity. Now that sounds very, very strange when I say embrace this opportunity, because nobody wants anybody to suffer from this. Nobody wants anybody to die from this, or even have a period of time of discomfort. Yet, let's be honest. Without something smacking us upside the head, we will continue along the same path that we do. We human beings are fundamentally lazy. It's not just human beings. Every critter on the planet responds to the environment, right? And if the environment doesn't change, they don't change. It's my understanding that sharks and alligators have remained virtually unchanged for 50 million years. Right? Yeah, there have been changes, but no dramatic evolutionary changes taken place in those. Why? The environment hasn't changed. Top of the food chain. Right? Nobody rose up to challenge them, and so they didn't change. They didn't need to. Right? With the expansion of human consciousness, we've gotten the capability to initiate change from within. That's the big remarkable thing. We are no longer like our animal cousins, completely defined by the environment we're in. We're actually creating our own inner environment, which is even more powerful and more influential than the external environment. And in the process of doing that, we either embrace this, right, as the opportunity to go beyond what we ever thought was possible, or we retrench. We retrench in a number of different ways. We don't want to take on that kind of responsibility. We want to be victims. We want to blame others. We want to, stay in our little cocoon. We don't want to come out. Or we become power hungry. We become hoarders. We become, like pretty much happening in every country on earth, a small group of people attempting to grab all the power. And so we have this huge imbalance going on. We have disturbances in the environments across the world, and I really wish they hadn't called it global warming, because it's really quite misleading. It's global destabilization is what it is. We're destabilizing the natural balance that the Earth has, and we are capable of doing that. Human beings have gotten to that point. So we're facing an enormous amount of stuff that is stretching human consciousness to the limit. And so when something like this comes up, we really have to welcome it as an alarm clock, right? It's time to wake up, folks. Wake up to that we still are intertwined with the earth, with other critters on the earth. We are still intertwined with each other, that we can't just kind of dominate the planet, right? Including on the microscopic level, right? We get rid of this one, there can be another one. The only way that that's going to stop is if we start living in harmony with nature instead of contrary to it, which doesn't mean we have to give up all of our modern conveniences like this. It means we have to think bigger. We can't just define it in terms of of what works for me, right? We have to define it in terms of the whole, right from the beginning, the resources coming out of the ground to the way they go back into the ground, and we're quite capable of doing that when we decide that that's what we need to do. A time like this, really, two things happen. People come together, and I'm seeing it all over the place. The level of kindness, as Dale pointed out earlier, the level of kindness, of respect for each other, of taking care of each other is so evident right now. And at the same time, you've got a very small group of people who have no compassion, they have no empathy whatsoever. For them, this is another opportunity to grab more power. And both of those are being made quite evident. Which is why we, those who have no interest in grabbing power, who want everyone to participate in this grand millennial expansion that we're experiencing, we have to come to understand real power. And that real power is here and here, right? It's the power of a sangha. It's the power of a church or a temple if it's rightly directed. It's not dogmatic or fundamentalist. It's an enormous power for the focusing of light. And really, that's what we're here to do. We are here to focus the light. You are a beam of light, right? Well, actually, your human life, this form, all your thoughts and feelings and actions and creativity, is the beam. The reality of you is you are the sun. And there's one sun at the essence of all of this, and every ray carries in it the image of the entire sun. So we can look at each other and see the sun, you know. To quote the Sufis, wherever the eye lands, it sees the face of God. To me, that's the game we're in right now. Whatever happens is always to push, or rather pull humanity. It's not a push from the back, it's a pull from the future. Pull humanity into its greatest potential. And its greatest potential is to realize its true nature. Right? It always gets back to that. Jane asks, GP, there seems to be lots of information on social media about conspiracies around the coronavirus. How can we discern what's true and what isn't true, please? Intuition, instinct, heart. I don't say this lightly, but we are in a World War III has already started. It's a war of the mind. It's a war of control over perception. Sometime I should do a whole class just on the book of Revelation, the Apocalypse, because it does actually describe this period of time. It's not describing historically, it's describing it from the point of view of an evolution of consciousness. And as consciousness gets more and more close to self-realization, the nastiest elements of the egoic mind, which is the devil, the great red dragon in the sky, is how it's depicted in the in the book of Revelation, will emerge, and we are seeing it. The four horsemen of the apocalypse: death, war, greed, greed, and there was no, and there's a word for it, like 30% interest rates on credit cards and things like that. I mean, it really does depict the just kind of the lack of concern for anything but itself. That's the nature of that ego. So I've listened to some of the conspiracy theories. The thing with all the conspiracy theories is there's truth in them. There's plenty of evidence that there is. And we you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to see that there's a power grab going on. Look at the stats. In the United States, it has been 30 years since any major bill has passed the U.S. Congress that was actually wanted by the public, right? The public needs, public desires, and public interests are no longer any factor whatsoever on what Congress does. That's a statistical fact. You can look at the polls as to what was popular at the time and what actually got enacted. There's no correlation, right? So we don't actually live in a democracy anymore. We live in an oligarchy. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's just a regular stuff. You can look at any kind of regular statistical information will show you that that's true. The thing you have to watch out for is how the ego loves conspiracy theories because it makes itself feel really important. It doesn't really seek a solution in that sense, right? It certainly isn't seeking love. It isn't seeking compassion. It isn't seeking wisdom. It's seeking a different kind of bad guy to make itself feel better. And so the theories can get so whacked out. First off, the word conspiracy theory was actually a word the CIA of the United States hired. I think it was Edward Bernays, who's kind of the father of modern propaganda. Matter of fact, he even coined the phrase public relations, right? So he couldn't, to get around the word propaganda, because that's what it actually is. And he was hired to come up with some way to discredit these people who are actually saying what the government was actually doing. And they came up with this conspiracy theorist, just flooded the media with it to basically marginalize people who were actually on to what they were doing. That's the actual history of it. And it goes on both sides. You've got right-wing conspiracy nuts, like an Alex Jones, right? And then you got the left-wing ones. What I always do is I listen to a lot of different places, and then I just rely on my own, what feels true to me, right? And of course, the more we're capable of discerning between the energy of the ego and the energy of truth, the easier it gets, right? The ego has a bad smell about it, right? When you get used to it, it's just something's not quite right. Something's not quite right. There's a couple of them, really big time conspiracy theorists like David Icke, who I rather enjoy, right? And probably about 70% of what he says I agree with, right? And then there's this other part that what you look for is they call it there's actually a word for it, a cognitive prejudice. There's a word for it, where basically you start with the idea of what you think is true, and then you look for the evidence to support it, right? That's and that's kind of the way people, and that's really kind of the way the mind works. When we believe something strong enough, we very naturally and unconsciously filter out whatever disagrees with it and amplify whatever agrees with it. So the only way is a deep introspection. so that your desire to know the truth, right, which is the desire to be free of falsity, is bigger than simply wanting to know something, especially to know something somebody else doesn't know. You're in on something. There's a real, it's a real seductive power. And it's not to say that what some of these conspiracy theorists, for lack of a better word, are saying isn't true. Oftentimes it is, right? But what do you do then, right? What do we do with this, right? Now, there's all sorts of conspiracies now that the coronavirus was a weaponized uh, thing in China against the U.S. Of course, it's people in the U.S. are saying that because they want to turn it into that. I heard about that. Of course, it's possible, and believe me, if China's doing it, the U.S. is doing it, Russia, they're all doing it. They're all doing it, and there's always the possibility something could get out, right? The everything I've seen about it, this virus has none of the markings of a genetically or a modified, a, a, a an engineered virus, right? It looks like quite a natural mutation of viruses that already exist. HIV, on the other hand, does. It does have the markings of something that does appear to have been a biological warfare that was tested, might even have been tested and got out of control. So when it comes down to it, be willing to, we have to be wise, right? People in power want to stay in power, and they want more power. The ego is relentless. It wants all the power it can get. There's a reason why greed is regarded as one of the 7 deadly sins, right? Because it's insatiable. It will destroy its host to keep feeding itself. We're actually seeing that in the United States. It's literally destroying the entire economy for the sake of a few people. It's why in Buddhism, greed is one of the 3 poisons: ignorance, delusion, and greed. They are one of the 3 poisons that establish suffering and basically destroy everything in its path. They're deadly. So I never want anybody to walk around with their eyes closed and think everything is just okay. It just behooves us more, those of us who are aware of a deeper power, a power that cannot be misused. Truth cannot be misused. Falsity can be misused, right? It requires billions of dollars in propaganda and in marketing and owning of all the news outlets and stuff to substantiate a lie. Matter of fact, one person referred to modern media as spreading darkness at the speed of light. It is, but the truth requires nothing to sustain it. It is absolutely inviolate and self-sustaining. The more you simply align yourself with the truth, not just a truth, like this is happening or this is happening, because no matter how well we see it, we will always be looking from a distorted perception. Perceptions are never the whole picture. You will never, ever have a mind that has the whole picture. You can't. Right? So we must withdraw to that place that all of the chaos that we're going through right now, that consciousness is growing to. We need to be the end game. We need to become the very thing that all of this is trying to draw us to, which is a consciousness that is completely beyond anything we've known so far. A consciousness that is not chained to any kind of theory, but simply knows what's true intuitively and is impervious to bullshit, is impervious to fear, right? Is simply not afraid anymore. And that sense of fearlessness comes when you're even willing to let go of the fear of death. because you come to understand that consciousness cannot ever die. Forms come and go, but you never will. Not for a moment. You will witness your own death. You will witness another birth. You will witness the time in between. To truly come to see that, and you can't know that intellectually, that can only come from a deep place inside of you. When you realize that, fear just simply dissolves. I mean, it can still occur. I mean, the body has its natural fears. It wants to keep itself together, but you'll no longer feel that the body's fear is your fear. You accommodate it. You're nice to it. You take care of it. You eat well, exercise, do all the stuff you're supposed to do. Stay away from processed food and stupid stuff, right? Um, but you're no longer dependent on it. You're fearless at that point. Right? You're living on a completely different plane. This is where it's leading us, right? Be the teacher's highest teaching. I strive to be the living example of my teacher's teaching, right? Not to just spout it or know about it, but to be it, right? To be the fruit, right? That started long ago. Started with Buddha and before. Right? Those seeds got planted, right? And we are the fruit that is being born. So I know I'm digressing a lot. Hopefully this is useful to you. Let me see if I can go back to Jane to get that. So just to sum it up, because you were saying, how do we know what's true and not? Conspiracy theory and was it plausible denial? That's always a nice one. First off, don't be afraid that you don't, right? Be willing to be with the not knowing. If you're willing to be with the not knowing, the truth has a space in which it can reveal itself. We seek to know and to seek to control, to seek to be free of fear, right? But you don't have to do that, right? Be completely at home with the not knowing, and the rest will take care of itself. Just be love. Right? Not just be loving, but be love. Right? Let the ego be dissolved by love, not by trying to act loving, but by being love itself. When love is your identity, the ego has no place to go. It suffocates. You're up so high that it can't get any air, and it just falls back to the earth. Dora, peace and love from Tunisia. Welcome. I don't think anybody's ever been here before from Tunisia, unless name looks familiar. You may have been here before. Darshana, hello GP. Thanks for these sessions. On observing my mind while doing an action, it becomes difficult to complete the action. Some clarity on it, please. Yeah, don't. Let's see. When we're doing things, we obviously have to be engaged in what we're doing, right? You can't just kind of wander off, right? So when I'm talking about just observing your mind, don't try to turn it into like you're switching it on and off. I'm doing something, now I'm observing. Just do, right? Just be totally present with what you're doing. That presence is itself the self-awareness. That will grow to the point where you will begin to perceive the action, the mind doing the action, and the watching of the mind doing the action all simultaneously. And it's actually being watched by something even larger, something we can't even put into words, which is the true absolute self. So what I always urge people to do is be present, right? When you're doing something that requires a great deal of concentration, right? Like maybe a piece of art, or you're learning a new skill, or designing a very complex engineering solution. your attention needs to be focused there. That conscious participation, by letting the attention be there fully, that's it, right? Now, right, you don't have to have this conscious awareness of where the attention is going every moment. Yeah. We think we do because on a subtle level, we mistake attention for consciousness. Attention is kind of like a flashlight that consciousness happens to be looking through, and it can see this or that. But consciousness is the whole picture. Step further further back, and always make sure that what you are doing is done with done impeccably. It's really done with the most love and compassion and precision. Bring the best you can to it in that moment, right? And then let it go. So that when we're doing X, like allowing, or the meditations that I do, we're going to do another one. We're going to do one here. In those times, completely withdraw attention back and turn it on itself, because you can, right? Over time, it gets to the point where there's no division between these two. That the practice of inward looking and the outward focusing of attention don't affect each other in the slightest. But in the beginning, it does. In the beginning, you're engaged in what you're doing, be fully present in what you're doing, just love what you're doing. And then when that's done, it's time to let that attention go back to sleep, really. Let the attention sink back into its source. And we do that just in a meditative way. And I'll be doing that in a little bit, in a little bit here. So, God, it's so good to see you all here. This is really wonderful. Wildcat, that's Dale. I feel that suicide is the ultimate form of resistance. What do you think about suicide? I feel it needs to be talked about more. There's been a huge rise with suicide in recent years. Yeah, I think suicide is regarded as a way out. And I'm not going to argue with it. And I think there's some lives that, where people, if somebody chooses that, it's not up to me. It's not up to me to judge it. It's not a way out, right? Because whatever unresolved vasanas, the deep energies, not just some of the traumas and stuff and bad memories and things that might be going on in this lifetime, although some of them do sink deeply enough into the energy field that they will recur again. So it's not something to be regarded as a way out. There's a better way out. What it really is we are seeking relief from the ego, right? And because we're so identified with, we don't even realize that we are something other than the ego. We don't realize that the heaviness, the emptiness, the pain, the suffering is all caused by identification with a person that does not actually exist. That's what we're actually seeking freedom from. We think it's the body. And so we're going to kill off the body, hoping to be free of the person. But the body isn't the person. The body's just the functioning of life. It's our identification with the body, with our past, with our memories, with our traumas, with our associations. It's that creation of the separate self or a person. That is who we really need to escape from. And death is not an escape from that. It's just going to be back. I'm back in the next life. It does not end that way. It only ends through the realization that that is not who you are, that the consciousness is not the person, that the music is not originating in the radio, right? We think we're the radio and all the radio's problems, and it has broken parts and things don't work and it can't tune in correct. If I think I'm the radio, right, and I'm even going to be jealous of other radios that have higher fidelity and can play better music, right, or get to play music that I like, for that matter. If I'm identified with the radio, I'm going to completely miss the fact that I am actually the music that is passing through it. I'm the transcendent that's being made manifest in it. I am the music I am not the radio, right? And if I really hate it, let's get rid of the radio, right? It won't have any effect at all because the feeling that that's what I am is still there. So it isn't a way out, right? Addictions aren't a way. Nothing's a way out of the suffering of the person except to realize you're not the person. You can't even. There's only so much improvement you can do on the person as well. I mean, yeah, you can make a dysfunctional person into a more functional person, but it's temporary, right? Because it's not real. It's not stable. The thing about the ego is it's not stable, right? 5 years ago you had a certain image of yourself, right? Is it the image you have yourself now? Absolutely not. That's the ego. But you thought, this is who I am, right? Or 10 years ago, this is who I am. If you look at it in terms of past lives, you could have a completely different race, height, body, gender, sexual orientation, everything could have been different. And that would have been who you were, right? And now all of a sudden that fades away. This emerges. This is who I am. And of course, every night you have a dream, and that's who you are, right? So the ego is completely unstable. That sense of identity is completely untrustworthy. You can't rely on it. You're totally in love one minute and you can't stand them the next, right? Best friends, worst enemies, right? Where we look for stability, it doesn't exist there. And that's really what suicide is in a way to get away from extreme suffering. And I understand that. I understand why somebody does it, and I don't judge it. And I hope there is some relief in it, right? But I do know that the underlying cause of it is identification with a person, identifying con- uh, consciousness, which is infinite, and confining it within the little swimming pool of a person, and that death does not put an end to that. It will come back. So hopefully that answers your question, Dale. Carol J. Hello, Carol. Appreciative hello from Carol in the Silicon Valley. Happy to be here for live for a change. Yeah, a different day. Yeah, I'm just kind of this is just an idea I had during the quarantine to just kind of create a space for people to gather and ask questions and just kind of unify our energy so we can be the solution. Right? We are. It is our hearts and our love that is the solution. We're the beacon, right? The institutionalized solutions, they always fail. They always fail. When you watch the innovations just happen from people, it's just extraordinary. People finding ways to do what needs to be done without getting in each other's way, without putting each other in any danger, with the most respect and love. It's really quite a beautiful thing to behold. Let's see. Reggae Fin One. Greetings from Finland. Greetings to you, sir. Let's see. Lalit Modi. Hi, GP from New Jersey. First time on chat. I am the seeker, seeking I am. Can I give you a little insight into that, Lalit? You're not the seeker seeking I am. You are the I am witnessing the activity of seeking. In other words, the seeker and the seeking are both being seen by the sought. Identify with what's being sought, not with the seeking. Turn it around, 180. Are you not, isn't the seeker simply an energy you're feeling? They're seeking thoughts, they're seeking feelings, there's a sense of wanting something. But isn't that all of those seeking thoughts, seeking feelings, and the energy of what, isn't that all being perceived in a deeper space? That deeper space is what you're seeking. And that deeper space is the real you. That's why the paradox of awakening is, oh, I've been this the whole time. Your awakening awakens to itself. You're not the seeker. You're not even elite. Those are just names, right? Let yourself fall back into the ultimate position. Just give that a try. That's a very nice dose of direct path, non-dual teaching. Let's see how you can do in that, because I have no idea who you are. Never met you before, and also make sure you're in satsang, because I want to follow where this goes. This is wonderful. Dale, hello again from Massachusetts. Hello, Dale. Jeff, how do we nurture our true nature? Well, we don't. True nature doesn't need nurturing, right? Does truth need somebody to make it true? Does it even need somebody to believe it in order for it to be true? This is our great. This is our great. What's the word? This is our great retreat. This is our. This is where we go for comfort, right? This is the great revelation. We can sink into the truth. We don't have to create the truth. Right? Our true nature exists as a reality. We're not seeing it, right? So the our true nature doesn't need to be nurtured. We simply have to withdraw our attention from everything that is distracting us from the true nature that's actually here. See, but the true nature, and this is where it gets significant, and we are going into non-dual territory here. For those of you who may be new, please just let me know, and I'll review some stuff, right? But the true nature is consciousness that has no limitations. The limitation is all thinking of yourself as a person. And this is so subtle that we create a sense of a person. And when that person matures and becomes more subtle and nuanced and the like, that person becomes a spiritual seeker. And then we think that that person is going to eventually find the fruit of its seeking and become enlightened. Right? The seeker does not ever become enlightened. The seeker disappears in the seeking. As Muji puts it so beautifully, he said, the one who starts the inquiry does not finish the inquiry, but is finished by the inquiry. So your true nature is not something that you, a person, discover. Your true nature is revealed in self-realization when you disappear. The you have thought yourself to be is seen to be nothing but a thought, an illusion. And this can be, people can get this and then it slips away, get it and slips away. Very rarely somebody goes, wham, and it's over, right? For the most part, this will be something we keep coming back to, because that sense of personal identity is extremely strong, even when we become spiritual, which is why I'm going back to my friend Lilette. Where were you? Yes, I'm the seeker seeking I am, right. Yeah, and it's good. It's way ahead of the one who doesn't care, right? Or the seeker who is seeking God. It's taken a step further. But what just look inside. What else do you find but the sense I am? That's what you're looking for, right? And so in a very real sense, the I am is simply looking for itself. So drop the idea of being anybody other than the I am, because what else are you ever experiencing except I am? So does that answer it for you, Jeff? So what you're the nurturing is always you're nurturing compassion, you're nurturing wisdom, you're nurturing love. You're growing more honest with yourself, tender with yourself, more self-accepting, a greater space of allowing, and just inner spaciousness opens up, and that's nurturing the whole energy system that allows it to bring it to the point where it simply begins to surrender itself, right? And the sense of ego cannot sustain itself in that environment. The ego needs conflict, it needs contention, it it needs it's either arrogant or self-deprecating, right? It's either aggressive or a victim, right? There's no middle ground for it. But that space of simply allowing, letting everything be as it is, that's the opposite of the ego. The ego can't do that. It's always taking a position. Right? The ego, spirituality is trying to get the ultimate position because now I know the truth. Even enlightenment becomes an object that the ego pursues, right? So, um, uh, so does that answer it for you? Nurture yourself, your heart, your life, the people around you, right? And let that open to the truth that needs no nurturing. Your true nature doesn't develop, it just is, and always has been. And so it's a realization, self realization, self discovery, not a becoming. Jeff said unconscious bias, that's the word. Yeah, right, that's the word. It's just an unconscious bias. We naturally choose one thing or another. Danielle, hello, Danielle. Could it be a collective result of our desire for change? Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Be careful what you wish for, right? See, we all want to evolve. We all want to change. We all want things to be better. We want humanity to be more loving and kind and unified. We know things are messed up. Yeah, we know greed's taken over the world. We know things have to change, right? What's it going to take to make them change? Well, we would like that change to come all wrapped in a nice bow and it's nice, it's a gift, extra money in my bank account and things like that. That's kind of what we want, right? We want it to be nice and sugar coated, right? We want the cappuccino enlightenment, right? We want the chocolate covered life, right? But if we really want change, and we do, we're very sincere about it, and the worse things get, the more we realize how severe the change required is. Well, we just have to let life show us how to do it. We have to. The circumstances will emerge that will force us to grow into the character that allows those transformations to take, those deep changes, deep transformations to take place. And if they don't take place here, they're not going to take place out there. It's really that simple. So it is a result of that, and it doesn't always. These things don't come in nicely wrapped packages. And someone might ask, well, what about the people who have suffered and died for it, right? Well, death isn't the end, folks, right? And I don't want to diminish it or flip it. I mean, it's painful. It's painful for the people who survive. It's not for the painful people who actually die. It's actually a relief, right? Um, they don't need our pity. Our sympathy goes to the people who are missing them, right? And so it's not the end. It's not the end of opportunity. It's not the end of their own growth, right? And whether you experience it as someone who just watches it happening, something that happens to you and recover from, or something happens to and you don't recover from, that change you've desired continues, right? There's way more to this than we realize. you know the veil between this world that we think is so solid and real and the next one is way more flimsy than we recognize. There's an interconnection to the entire thing. um, so really take that in and be willing to just open your heart completely to the wisdom of the universe, to the wisdom of God, the wisdom of true being, however you want to place it. There is an infinite intelligence that is the truth itself, and that is not struggling, is not worried about life, is inherently knowledgeable of its own immortality. And that is your true nature, right? It's not a being out there somewhere. It's the being that is who you actually are. Suketa says, trust that everything happened for us and not to us. Got to continue to remind myself because I keep forgetting. Yes, yes, beautiful. Just keep reminding yourself of that. Keep bringing yourself back to the truth, right? But here's the important thing. It's not just a thought in your head. It's not just a better belief, right? This isn't benevolent hypnotism, right? We're here to discover what's true. I'm not going to settle for just a better thought, right? I mean, if that's all I got is a choice between two better thoughts and no truth, and it's like none of this has any meaning at all, because why is this even a better thought than that? It becomes completely relative. There's no real reason why this is a better thought than that. But if this is a better thought than this thought, because this one's closer to the truth, wow, now I'm onto something. Because what I really want is to discover that which is not changing, that which is not arbitrary, not that which is here 1 minute and gone the next. Our craving for immortality is our craving for truth, for that which doesn't change, for that which is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. That is what we seek. So the reminding yourself of that, remember, you're reminding yourself of your true nature, not of some arbitrary state we're trying to grab and hold on to, but the real state that's always here that we don't have to grab and hold on to. It's holding on to us. Alfie Thorne. Hi, Alfie. So glad you're doing these GPs. So much confirmed other parts help me move to more awareness. I just allow it. Love you. I'm grateful for you. Great. Wonderful. I'm grateful for you too, Alfie. I'm just, anytime I see the spark of awakening, it just lights me up. Because everything is moving us towards the ultimate realization of who we really are. It doesn't happen in groups. It happens one at a time. But your awakening, my awakening, and the awakening of everybody else is included in it. Buddha made a most remarkable and mysterious statement. He said, when he attained the great unexcelled, unparalleled enlightenment, simultaneously all beings attained the great unparalleled, unexcelled enlightenment. Mysterious. Right? But from that moment on, he never saw somebody else as not awake. He saw himself, the awakened one, the Buddha, everywhere. Suketa says, I'm a financial advisor. I feel like there are rocks thrown at me. I don't know how to protect myself. I know it's not about me. I watch and shiver. Yeah. Yes. I think I'm going to do some videos, some tapping videos, really on kind of the fear that people are struggling with. I actually think there's less fear of the virus than there is of the financial meltdown that this is actually accelerating. I mean, it was happening anyway. Global capitalism has collapsed. If you look closely, it's enormous amount of manufactured money, fake money. We call it borrowed money, but it's somebody just making it up to keep this whole thing going. It's fallen apart. Everybody feels it. Everybody knows it. But the transition period from a total collapse of a civilization, really. I mean, and this is a civilization that started 12,000 years ago. So this is an epoch shift. This is not just a bump in the road. Everybody's feeling, we've been feeling it for a long time. That's why you see people retrenching, things like, fundamentalists and terrorists. You have, fascism. You have white supremacy. These are all knee-jerk reactions. Simultaneously, you have this just outpouring of love and cooperation and a desire to help. But what you're going to experience, Suketa, if people their finances, because the finances are directly chained to a system that is collapsing, they're going to be, they may, if they're spiritually immature, they're going to be lashing out at whoever they can lash out at. I've had people lash out at me about stuff, and I know it has nothing to do with me, right? They're just right. This is what happens, when the things we've relied on are just falling away from us, right? Um, if I can if I can go biblical on you for a moment, this is actually captured. This image of an entire way of being falling apart. It's after it's in the Old Testament when Moses sees God in the burning bush. Now, by the way, it was not a literal thing, him up in a mountain, because he wouldn't have been in a mountain. He was a shepherd. He wouldn't have left the sheep down there, right? So the mountain was not somewhere, right? It was here. The bush was not a physical bush burning. It too was here. As a matter of fact, the mountain on which he was standing when he saw the burning bush was Mount Horeb. Horeb, in English, means desolation. He was standing in the middle of his own desolation, a lot like most of us are right now, right? And he had this experience of the burning bush. Now, that word burning, I looked it up in the Hebrew dictionary, and it means mental turmoil. So what we're talking about is this deep sense of inner turmoil. That what Moses did is he turned towards it, right? If you read it, it looks like he'd seen it before and walked past, like many of us done, ignore, annoy, distract. But this time it says, I'm going to turn aside now and look at this great wonder, why this bush burns but is not consumed. Why is my heart completely and totally distraught and I simply don't vaporize? It doesn't kill me. And of course, at that moment, God speaks to him out of the midst, God being who later identifies himself as that sense I am, right? And says, Moses, take off your shoes. You're standing on holy ground. Yeah, you're in the presence of the I am. Now, it's beautiful because then God starts, the I am, breaks down his delusions, right? And one of the first things he does is he says, throw down your staff. Now, the staff is the number one tool of the shepherd, right? He uses it for, it's got the crook on the end. It's a big long thing. He uses it for getting the sheep. He uses it also for finding holes along his way. He leans on it. It's very important to him. I mean, actually, we'll lean on it. Well, the I am says, throw it down. He throws it down, and it becomes a serpent. He's terrified. He runs away from it. Now, of course you run away from your serpent. God says, no, pick it up again. Now he picks it up and it becomes a staff again. It's not God trying to demonstrate that he's got these supernatural powers. What it's indicating is, look at what you are relying on. What you're relying on was a serpent. It was actually biting you. It was killing you. This isn't where you put your faith. This isn't where you put your trust. Don't put your trust in these systems. They're going to fail you. But then he doesn't just have him walk away from him. He says, pick it up again. Right? This isn't going to end. Something else is going to emerge. And of course, that very staff then does some miracles in and of itself later on, which is really very fascinating. But it's a metaphor. It's a symbolic act. It's very unlikely that the person of Moses never even existed. And in fact, that character, Moses taken from the water, raised by, humble beginnings, raised by a king, that happened. That's in, read a lot of Joseph Campbell recently. That myth is in all sorts of different cultures, not just this one. So it's not a historical event. It's symbolizing exactly what we're going through right now. It's a guide for us to make sense and what is happening right now. He also did another thing. He said, "Put your hand inside your coat and pull it out again." It was covered with leprosy. He was scared to death. He says, "Well, put it back in again." Puts it back in. It was gone. He was revealing to him the mental, the 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 imageral, the imaginary nature of disease. There's one other thing he did too that I can't remember. And then ultimately he revealed to him who he was, the I am. Who are you? Who sent me? And he says, I am that I am. So when I do a meditation, which I am going to get to before we're through here, and and we go to that place that is just the sense of I am, that's it. That's what he experienced. And it transformed him because he saw it in a huge way. Now, whether there was actually a Moses that happened to or not, I don't know. I think there was. My instinct says it was, that he was, that, and this is what he experienced. You know, the whole mythology and legend gets laid on top. Same with the Christ. There's a whole mythology around Christ. There does seem to be evidence that there was such a person, a sage, an enlightened being, right? And not what he's made out to be. But at any rate, these are ways for us to recognize that. And I know I went very far afield from your question, Suketa, but I just can't help but kind of elaborate on this. The fact that if you know what's going on, you're a conduit for these other people to coming into the place. That's what's meant by Moses becoming the deliverer. None of the people who were following him had any clue as to what he was doing. They hadn't had that experience, right? So he was kind of a catalyst, through which they could walk, the sea would part, and they could find themselves. It has nothing to do with land and territory and tribal rules and all sorts of stuff. It's a symbolic action. It's a metaphor for you being that guide that helps part the sea that these people might be able to walk through. And of course, they criticized Moses too. They built the golden calf. He's gone too long. We don't want to pay any attention. I mean, the stories. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful story if it's seen mythologically. Um, so you don't have to shiver. Watch, right? And if your body shivers, yeah, let it. It's fine, right? Yeah, the body's going, hey, I'd rather not this be happening, but it's happening. If it's shivering, don't identify with the shivering, right? Remain who you are. You are that conscious presence that is aware of it. So Danielle says, I'm new. Oh, wonderful. Wonderful, Danielle. Yeah, great. Fantastic. Hope this is interesting and inspiring for you. Let's see, we're at 1 hour and 18 minutes. Brian says, this is such a welcome highlight, G. Thank you. Oh, Brian, you're great. How long have we known each other now? It's been a long time, right? I mean, you were like back in the days, even with Bethany, when right very beginning, the first thing I ever did in terms of media, before I even had any YouTube videos, I think you were listening to my podcast, which I'm thinking of starting again. So maybe just take some excerpts from these things and start putting them out there. I just don't have the time to do all the technology anymore. Okay. John Sheehan, thanks, GP. Night. Oh, night from Ireland. Midnight here. Right. EST +5. Right. Listening to Muji today, he says that we are awareness. We are, as awareness, perceiving the seeker, searching for what is the awareness. Yes. Thank you. You've probably gone by now because, yeah, it's way out. I did this in an earlier time on another day, which I'm going to do again. I'm going to mix up the times. But it seemed about the same number of people. The peak number of people was about the same. So these are good times. Anyway, yeah, that's exactly what I was saying earlier to Lilith, right? About seeking the I am. I mean, that is the way we sense it. But it's actually the seeking and the seeker are both being perceived by what is ultimately being sought. Just to realize that you're already there. Lily, if you're still listening, because I can't really tell when people leave and not, but but Saint Francis of Assisi put it beautifully. He said, "What you are looking for is where you are looking from." Really ponder that, and it can put an end to the seeking very quickly. Because I suspect you're kind of a new seeker. Maybe not. Anyway, same to you, Jeff. John, night night from Ireland. Oh, we got that already. Pathless path. Yes, it is a pathless path. Gateless gate. Gateless gate is the name of one of the set of Zen koans. It's brilliant. Danielle, I manifest the best scenario these days. I thought that was a great scenario, but there is suffering for others. What about the concept of the multiverse? Um, oh, there are an infinite number of universes, right? The big question is because there's no end to the universe. There's no limit, right? The source of being itself is inexhaustible. Just like right, music is inexhaustible. Being is inexhaustible. It's inconceivable. And even look, even in being inexhaustible, it's so inexhaustible that no two things are ever alike. No blades of grass, no snowflakes, right? It never repeats and remains inexhaustible. I mean, it's inconceivable, really. So there are universes upon universes, right? The the big question to bring it home is, what am I? Who am I in all of this, right? Because we have kind of this self idea of us in a universe, and then this universe and a bunch of other universes. What if it's the other way around? What if the universe and all of those other universes are in you? What if you are that infinite beingness that of which the multiverses are just a manifestation? And you're saying you're manifesting the best scenarios these days. I thought that was a great scenario, but there's suffering for others. This is a good sign, right? If you have that capacity, and some people do, or some things just come very naturally. But if your heart is opening up to saying, it's just not enough for me, fantastic. Fantastic. That means that something bigger, because the whole manifestation law of attraction thing got completely destroyed by selfishness. It's all about me. I'm going to have my $1,000,000. I'm going to have my perfect this or that. And so when I hear people talking about manifesting and saying, it just doesn't feel like it's just for me isn't enough. Fantastic. It means your heart's opening. You're entering into a completely different way of being. A completely different way. And it doesn't mean you're going to lose that power. It doesn't mean you have to forego. It simply means that when we spiritually mature, we just can no longer want to gain for ourselves alone. We want the whole world to share in it. It's simply the way it is. It's the Bodhisattva vow. Bodhisattva, the Arhat seeks enlightenment for itself, for themselves. The Bodhisattva seeks enlightenment for all beings. So this shows that more than the mind is awakening, your heart's awakening. So I'm just really pleased to hear you speak like that. You say, I'm a collector for an international company. It's really crumbling. Yes. And there's an end in sight, but it's not close right yet. Thank you for bringing this to our heart. You're very welcome. Very, very welcome. Yeah, it may not be, it's not going to be really necessarily pleasant. Transformation is not pleasant on its own accord. It's where it's taking us to. Look, the old systems didn't work. The world was suffering, right? And when I talk about that, and I talk about the enormous inequality, It's like 3 people in the world control more wealth and assets than the bottom 3.5 billion people. Now that is an insane imbalance, right? That's insane. That's an unsustainable system, no matter how you look at it. It has to crumble, right? Now, but when I talk about the people suffering, I'm not making those people um, evil, right? I'm not. They're suffering because they're suffering from the same delusion we are. They're on the other side of it. They think they're the winners. They think they've got it, right? But greed or hoarding and poverty are two sides of exactly the same coin, and it is the delusion of lack. When the delusion of lack is seen, there can be neither poverty nor hoarding. Those opposites can't appear. They can only appear because there's there's a sense of lack, a limited amount. I'm getting everything I can for me, and so that sense of love becomes so narrow and focused. It's me and my little group. That's what evil is. Evil is love that is too small. Simple as that. My love is only for me and for a small group of people. And we don't have empathy. We become completely immune to the suffering of others. But they're suffering too. It's a different kind of suffering. And if I don't have a lot and I see somebody who does, I try to imagine that they're not suffering, but they are, right? They have they're hungry ghosts, this insatiable desire for more. And it is insatiable, and it is parasitic, and it will kill itself. It will kill the host. It will completely wipe everything out, right? And the last thing they want to see is a collapse of the entire thing. And that's exactly what's happening. And no one's going to be able to stop it. Okay? And it's going to change everything. Every industry is going to change, every relationship. I can't tell you exactly what it's going to look like. I just know it's going to look really different than it is now. The governments that we have now are not going to exist. Governments as we know them are not going to exist. It'll be more around the intelligent management of resources. Money and accomplishment will no longer be the measurement by which we measure our worth. It will be contribution, love, compassion, and values. This is a fundamental shift in the entirety of human consciousness as it has evolved. So as it as I think is it Christ put it, if it were not for the grace of God, no one would survive this. That's how. And this isn't to say, oh, everything's going to be, burning. It's not going to be the, apocalyptic dystopia. It's nothing like that. It's all in here. It's all happening in it. Yes, stuff is going to be happening out there. But Christ put it beautifully. He said when they asked about his coming, which is actually in here, right? The kingdom of heaven is within, and the end of the world, the end of your world, the end of the world as we believed it to be. He said, see the temple, what we regard as holy, everything that matters to us. He says, not one stone will be set on another that shall not be torn down. Whoa. He's referring to the structures of the mind. He is not referring to this. It's not going to be armies and all sorts of crazy, and the rapture, and people are going to disappear and their cars are going to crash into buildings and things like that. It will be a rapture, but it's the rapture of divine awareness, the rapture of awakening. So I've gone off on prophetic stuff enough, I guess, for a minute. Did I miss something here? I am Michelle. Hello, Michelle. We are not a global courtier, we're in a global retreat. Love this. Life will never be the same again. That is right. What if it is better than ever? Oh, it will be. It will be. This one hasn't been working. Right? It hasn't been working. It hasn't been working for a very long time. Right? This is the way the world evolved. It's not really. It wasn't greater freedom. We thought, oh, it's freedom. It's not. The employee-employer relationship is one step removed from master-slave, which was one step removed from aristocracy and serf, right? Right? It's still the same model going, it's a couple thousand years old now. It's still the same model, right? It's collapsing in its entirety. We're talking about genuine uh, individual freedom. I use the word democracy, but that's a misunderstood. Self-determination with cooperation, right? In the book, The Seven Habits of Highly Successful People. Was that the Steve Covey book? I think that was it. He made a very important point, right? And I'm not all about the whole success techniques and all that kind of stuff, as you all know, but he made a very important point that we go from dependence to independence, and our world is at a point of independence now. We've become independent from nature. We can dominate nature to the point where we can destroy it, right? Uh, we've got an independence that allows people to hoard an enormous amount at the expense of many, right? That's independence. Independence is selfish, right? Now that's a phase we have to go through. When you're a kid, you're totally dependent on your parents, and at some point you have to get your independence. But according to him, and this is brilliant, you don't stop there. The mature point is interdependence. When you have matured beyond just the depend and realize that it's a whole, and consciously engage in mutually beneficial. We're still at the point of independence. I'm independent, right? You hear it talk all the time. We got to be free. We got to be free, and nobody's going to tell me what to do, and all of that kind of stuff. That's the childish, rebellious dependence, independence that we're stuck in. That's the John Wayne, the self-made man, the Taming the Wild West, the guy, every hero story, right? In every comic book is that guy operates completely above the law. Every action movie has that as its theme, right? It's completely immature, right? That is the childhood ideal. That has not matured into manhood and womanhood yet. Right? A lot more about men than women. Actually, you come to it much more naturally than men do it. Truth be told, and so we are realizing its interdependence, and with the realization of our interdependence with the planet, that we can't just completely suck all the resources out. It's a brilliant system that is eternal. It will keep going unless we suck it so dry it can't replenish itself, right? So we'll be making really remarkable products, but we won't be just thinking about how do I make it as cheaply as I can, sell it for as much as I can, and let somebody else worry about getting rid of it. We'll be thinking all the way from the beginning what the natural resources that are required to make it, all the resource in every single part of the process will be this holistic view, recognizing the complete and total interdependence. And that's when we blossom into a humanity that is consciously engaged, consciously participating. So the consciousness doesn't lead to this complete freedom, nirvana, and this can go to hell in a handbasket. It is the embracing of it. The highest achievement in Zen Buddhism is not a detachment. It is consciously choosing to be the ordinary human being. That's the highest achievement there is. That's where we're headed. According to the Hindu tradition, the Kali Yuga, their prophecy about this particular time that we're in, the dark times, the times prior to the awakening, that it's going to look like evil is going to win. It's going to look like they win. And I think we're going to see that. At the end of this, we're already seeing it in the US government. I've never seen such a power grab. What they're doing with the money, just, gotten rid of all those things of the EPA, all the controls and that sort of stuff. It's insane, the power grab that's going on right now. So it is going to look like evil won. It's going to look like that for probably another 10, 15 years. I hope I live long enough to see the 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 outcome of this. I'm really enjoying the show. But in the meantime, I'm preparing you all for what is, for those of you who are not in my age bracket, for what is to for what is to come, because it's going to look pretty dire, but it's not, because it is a dream that we're waking up from. Okay? And it's Shiva's dream, it's Vishnu's dream, it's God's dream. It's not our dream. You're in the dream, right? You're what's being dreamed, and this is the realization we come to, that comes to the overwhelming beauty of our own awakening. So enough about that. It's holding on to us. That feels good. Thanks, GB. You're welcome. Daniel said, yes, Beatrice, thanks for doing this, GP. It feels like a deep breath of fresh air. Oh, I'm so glad. That's why I do it. Yuli in Australia, could you talk further on the nature of disease? You mentioned in a previous video that you treat disease like a bad dream. How can traumatic aspects stored in the body be changed? Last time, okay, Johanna asked, got two questions, I may combine them. Last time I shared something in satsang, you skipped over it and did it again today. Probably an accident. No, I'm really not trying to avoid you, Johanna. Sorry, my ego suffers. Perhaps that's the point. Just not sure why that discourages me. All right, I'm going to look back and find it, Johanna. There it is. People, you're right. And I even read that one. Maybe I read it and I thought I answered it. You're absolutely right. Yeah, it's okay, right? Oh, why did he do that twice? He skipped over me, right? No, that's actually not you. Notice that you're aware of it, but that's just the way our nervous system was trained to react. The ego's reacting to that. Just notice it, right? You go, oh, okay. Okay, so that's just another habit, the pattern of energy, because the ego is always wanting to be offended, right? Because then it feels something. But please notice that, and thank you for bringing it to my attention, because I certainly don't mean to do that. And so, as a result, I will take your question next. But be with it. Recognize that you are the awareness of this reaction, and that reaction of the nervous system is harmless and will just pass right through you, unless a sense of identity grabs a hold of it and says, that shouldn't have happened. That wasn't the right thing. Now notice, there's simply a reaction. He skipped over it again, right? And then a story gets created about it. The ego's in the story, not the reaction. The reactions are innocent, right? And they don't cause suffering. They just come and go. Unless somebody said, something shows up and goes, that shouldn't happen, right? It's very important to note, because that's the only place the ego exists. There's no story, there's no ego. Then life is just happening. There'd be reactions or lack of reaction, it won't matter. Okay. Anyway, which question? People who I consider more enlightened prior to this pandemic now seem stuck in reaction. Spirituality and a higher order are rarely mentioned in my social circles. I miss my comrades of grace. Wow. Yes. You know, a lot of people can commandeer the language of enlightenment and make it seem like they really know what they're talking about. And there are many of them. As you know, there's only a handful of teachers I actually recommend. Right? Right? Because the rest, I feel, have either got it partially, have got it in the head but not in the heart, or think they got it and don't. They're kind of in the trappings of it. They're it's not like they're just downright deceitful. It's not like they're, you know, there's been some TV preachers that have turned out to be just total charlatans. There was one like about 30 years ago, Marjo Gortner, and there's a few others that it was a total ruse. They were pretending, right from the get-go. Many of them, they're not pretend, they really believe it. They're insane, but they really believe it. They're despicable people, but they really believe that, and they believe they're in times like this, the 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 wheat and the chaff get separated, right? Because when it's just, psychological, an act you're putting on, even if you're really convinced of it, it's not going to stand up against a real barrage. It's not going to stand up against a real suffering, a real problem. They're not going to want to what to do, right? Because when you're genuinely awake, and that doesn't mean fully awake, and everybody here is awakened to a certain degree, right? So don't turn it into an all or nothing kind of thing. When you are, there is an inner resource to have a creative, novel, and unplanned, spontaneous response when something happens. If you're really tied to enlightenment or any kind of representation of yourself that is really um, learned behavior, it won't know how to react when the environment shifts, because it has no idea how to accommodate for that. It's completely lost in the sauce. There's a little story in Zen about these two temples. One was a Zen a monastery. One was a Zen monastery. The other was a Theravada monastery, much more strict, right? The kind that where men could not even touch women, right, or any of that kind of thing. Very, very strict. And this temple told all the young monks, say, look, the Zen people, they're crazy, right? Don't talk to them. Even if they try to talk to you, don't talk to them. They'll poison your mind. Right? Well, one day, this young fellow, a young monk, teenager, right, was sent on an errand. He had to go to the market to buy some stuff. And well, he's young. What can you say? He's just so curious. He sees one of the young monks from the Zen temple walking along the road, and he can't help himself. He's a kid, right? He can't help himself. He says, "Hey, where are you going?" And the Zen monk answers, says, "Going where? Nowhere. There's nowhere to go. We're always there. We're always here. Nowhere to go. No one to be. There's nothing to do." Well, the other monk said, "Oh my God! Oh my God!" What he did is his errand. He went back and he confessed his sin to his superior. He said, "I talked to him. These are the things he said." He says, "You see what I mean? These people are crazy. Don't talk to them. You can't talk to them." He said, "But here's what I want you to do. We're going to get him. I want you to go there. And the next time you see him, I want you to ask him that question. And when he answers you, this is how I want you to answer him." And so the young monk, he studied it. He memorized. He had it down. He could do it cold. He could do it in his sleep. He was ready. He was ready for the adventure. So a couple of days, sure enough, he's on the way to the market, and there's the other one. He says, "Hey, where are you going?" He's all ready. The other monk says, "To the market." What happens is when we try to prepare for life kicks us in the ass. When we think we got it down, that's when that boiling hot bowl of soup goes right in your lap. Right? And at times like these, for those whose understanding hasn't sunk into the depths, into the body, into the heart, into the soul, inevitably you're going to go into reaction. The nervous system freaks out. It doesn't know what to do. It hasn't really been matured. It hasn't really been made malleable. It hasn't really surrendered. It's been trying to follow a script, and life is not obligated to follow your script. It took no vow of cooperation. So in your particular social circles, you say spirituality and higher order are rarely mentioned in my social circles. I miss my comrades of grace. Well, I'm glad you're here with us because we are your comrades of grace. Is this really distressing for? Is there just no social circles available to you? It's just where you happen to be, and these are the people you have to happen to be with. If that's the case, then here's what you do. Love them, and actually look for ways in which you can enjoy them as they are. Right? It's already been seen that on that level of, the higher level of discussion and inquiry, like we do here, they're not going to be able to satisfy that for you. But that doesn't mean they can't be friends. They can't hang out. You can't do stuff. Because sometimes people, they're just good people. They're just not spiritually advanced. Sometimes they're pains in the ass, right? They're annoying or they're negative, right? In which case, just kind of move away from them. Sometimes they're just people, they've never had any exposure to what you've had exposure to and have taken into your heart. It may be possible even that your presence will open them up and you may become the avenue by which that higher order is something that begins to enter into their life. Right? Now, I urge people to not just go out and talk about it. Hey, let's have an undual conversation. Usually doesn't go over very well. But if you're just present and enjoying them as they are, without expecting them to be anything other than that, the energy field you have created is one of utter love and acceptance. That is the energy field of healing, right? Right. I mean, how many of us in our lives have just wanted to be loved and accepted for who we were in that moment, warts and all, right? Matter of fact, if we had been, 99% of the traumas and difficulties we've all struggled with over our lives simply wouldn't have happened because they were all caused by a rejection of us as we are, right? Always something else we had to be. And unfortunately, a lot of self-help does that without knowing it. A lot of spirituality does that. Puts this ideal that, I have to become. I've got to be like this. I've got to be the spiritual person now, which means it's a total rejection of who you actually are. Genuine spirituality is an embrace of you as you are. As you are is the divine. As you are is the face of God, not some abstract space you're going to get to later. So does that help you, Johanna? And I apologize for missing it. I'm glad I saw it. It's a beautiful, beautiful question. Now I got to scroll back down and see if I can find you again. There you are. Let's see. Oh, it seems to have smoothed out a bit. It was like really shaky as I was watching it here. Lalit says, "Thanks, GP. I hope one day Seeker will disappear and I and only I am." Yes. How about today? How about now? Just really look with me for a minute. I think in a minute I'm gonna start. It's a perfect segue into the meditation. Let's go look. Let's go look for that position from which you're actually looking right now. Let me get through the rest of these really quick, and then we'll do that. Danielle, never satisfied. Yes, referring to that. Yes, it's the nature of greed. It's the hungry ghost. There's a beautiful image in Zen. I think it's in Tibetan Buddhism as well, of the hungry ghost. And the hungry ghosts are these little beings that just kind of float around from place to place, very unstable. But they have huge bellies and huge mouths. But their neck is thinner than a human hair. So no matter how much they consume, they can never be satisfied. Greed is the hungry ghost. And once it affects you, more. I gotta have more. I already have 100 billion. Yeah, but he's got 110 billion. I gotta have more. And it becomes absolutely insane. It is insane, right? So we can be compassionate with these people. They're also dangerous. So we don't, But you can be totally compassionate about it. Brian said, yes, it's been 9 years. Yeah, I think it has been. Maybe more. 2010, 2011. Yeah, amazing. It had to have been before that, actually. Yeah, somewhere around there, because I think 2010 was my first YouTube video. So it's been 10 years I've been on YouTube. Danielle says, arrogance is hell. Oh, amen. And arrogance is the biggest block to awakening, because arrogance wants the awakening on its terms. It wants to take responsibility and credit for it. I think it was Atmananda who said, enlightenment is really wonderful. Too bad you're not there to enjoy it. Suketa says, yes, I see this vision. The heart of Christ is upon us. Yes, the great heart of Christ. Amazing. So true. Collaboration is the truth. Yes. Suketa, the emerging of the golden age, awareness, aware of itself, expansion of love. Is this it, GP? Yes, that's it, my dear. Maria says, is this recorded? Will we be able to listen to the entire call? Yeah, Marlene, actually, it's public. So it's going to be there forever on YouTube as public available. Just go to my channel, right? The same place you're seeing it right now, the same link. If you save it, the same link will work from now on. From now on out, I'm not deleting it. This isn't a private one that I have to post somewhere. It's already public, so it's going to stay public. Um, so everybody, to bring this to a close, I promised from the beginning, but we had so many wonderful questions. This was really a wonderful time together. Thank you all for joining me during this. Thank you all for supporting me in this. I've gotten a lot of donations lately to help me keep this up, and it really does make a difference, especially when the rent's due, right? And so thank you all. Thank you all for that again. Oh, Yasmin. Hi, nice to hear you. Yasmin, are you the one I met in? Are you the same? Yes, you're the one I met in Los Angeles, right? I think. Yes. Yes. I think so. Thank God. Wow, wonderful to see you. Okay. For those of us that are left, let's do a little meditation. I want to just kind of follow Lalit. Is it Lalit or Lalit? I think I said it. Lalit. I think that's correct. Lalit Modai. Saying, I hope one day seeker will disappear and only I am. Very good. And I have a poem that I want to share with you too. So close your eyes. And it's very natural that when we close our eyes, that our attention begins to look within. Because attention is an aspect of consciousness, and it's always looking for something to look at, right? So when we close the eyes, we cut it off from all the visual information, and it naturally begins to seek elsewhere to find something to bring into the focus of attention. Great. Let it focus on simply on the sense of your own beings, the feeling of your body. Start with the feeling of your body. Just the feeling, that energy field of your body. And as you do that, your mind will, show pictures to you of your body, even maybe words like, arm or nose or something. And say, thank you, I don't need you right now. And let your attention, because your eyes are closed, there are no pictures. So let the attention just feel, just the kinesthetic sense of your body. And if you're new to meditation, just let your breathing slow down. Consciously breathe. Feel it go in, let it go out. Let it go, let it slow down. Really become aware of it. This experience of your body. Just really sink into it. You find it's not all that hard to just be aware of the feeling of being. And you notice as you do that, things very naturally begin to calm down. Thought may even begin to dissipate a little bit. If it doesn't, that's okay too. Don't just say it's okay. It's all right to be here, but just let your attention remain focused just on feeling. Don't have to focus on my voice. It'll just get in to guide you. Now just see if you can feel yourself sinking in just a little bit deeper. And notice that while you're aware of that kinesthetic sense, that feeling of the body, you're aware of your breath, you're aware of sensations running through the body. That there's always two things there. There's the sensation and that sense of the energy field of the body, and there's an awareness of it. There's always a very subtle place of being aware of your own sensations. Maybe there's even some emotion, some anxiety may come up around the current condition of things. Fear. An image might pop into your mind that's disturbing. Notice it. Don't fight it or resist it. Just notice that there's, whatever the emotion may be, that there's something deeper that's aware of it. That awareness is always there. And even when an emotion, before an emotion comes, as long as it may last, and when it disappears, there's something that's aware of it coming, aware of it as enduring, and aware of it as it dissipates. So there's something very, very real. It's even more subtle than what is being perceived, sensed by your attention. And notice as I point that out that your attention begins to turn towards it. Now, as we're doing this, many thoughts can come to mind. That's okay. We have no agenda here. We're not trying to get rid of thinking. Just notice, well, there's a thought. It arose, it's there for a second, and then it disappeared. So there's me here aware of that thought. And clearly something very subtle. And so for a moment, I'm going to invite you to really intentionally let go of all of your past, the memories past, even everything that's happened up to this second. You know, it's a good question. I got my question answered. I didn't have a question, or I joined late, or anything at all, any thought at all. Just say, thank you, but not right now. And just keep your attention here on just this feeling and the awareness of the feeling. Same thing if there's something about the future, like what am I going to get out of this meditation? Is this going to help me? Is this enlightenment? Or will I be less? All the expectations, just set them to the side. We're just emptying ourselves of everything that isn't right here, right now. And even your favorite current self-image, how you see yourself. I'm a good person, I'm a creative person, I'm not a very creative person. Whatever, however it is you normally define yourself, just let that kind of drift away. Don't engage with it. And notice that the past, the future, and even your present view are just thoughts arising and subsiding, just patterns of thought. And that you are aware of them. And also, can be a very subtle sense of waiting for something to happen. And let go of waiting. Like, oh, is this going to be the end of the seeking? Just put that aside. It's just a thought, just a feeling. No next. Just now. Not now as a stepping stone to later, but just now. Just as it is. You're just empty. There's nothing here but you. Now that sense, what's left, that which you cannot let go of, you cannot push away. Your own sense of existence. It's very subtle, very quiet. Just being, and you know that you are. This sense of being, without mixing it up with a past, a future, present thoughts, sensations, or emotions, without mixing it with anything, without it referring to anything other than just that sense of existence, is there anything missing? Does it lack anything? Is it seeking anything? Does it desire to become something else? Can you find a boundary to it? Like stretch out and find a place where it ends. And remember, just referring to the sense of being, not to any thought about it. Did it have a beginning? Was there some time when it didn't exist? is there some time when it will no longer exist? This sense of being, does it have a gender or a belief system or any qualities that would define it in any way? Which of course would limit it in some way. Now, can you detect anything missing? Any beginning, any end, any boundary? Is there any name that can really capture it? Any form? Now, this is here, this sense of being. But so are you. Are you different than this? Are you imagining this? Are you making this up? Or are you perceiving something really here? Can you be separate from that? So, isn't the sense of being the sense I am? Even before the words I am, the sense that the words I am point to, that would have to be there before the words I am could even be spoken. Does this need to be sought? Or is it always just here? Is this not you? Your very self? And once again, just looking directly at this sense of being without any external reference, just based only on your direct experience of that. Do you think anybody here is experiencing something different? Or are we all experiencing exactly the same being. The I am. The religious name for it is God. Street name, me. The sense I am. I am that I am. Not some other I am, but this one. This is who I am. Now, as we begin to come back from this little inner journey, this inquiry, we're not leaving that behind and going somewhere else. We're staying here and we're letting everything else in. We're letting that attention shift. Remember, we withdrew the attention first from the visual world, then from the more subtle inner world of sensation and thought and the like, until finally we focused it directly on that most subtle sense of our own being, which is always here. So now we'll turn attention back around again. Let it begin to focus outward once again, but notice that that sense of being is still there. It doesn't just appear when attention looks at it. It's always there. And so it's quite okay for intention to go outward, to engage, to have a life, to have relationships and intimacy, to have fun. But even while that's going on, is this not still here? Is not this that I am the one who's actually experiencing the fun, the intimacy, the engagement? This is the real you. Without reference to anything else. This is the real you that experiences every day. It's not lost in everyday life. It's the one who is experiencing everyday life. It is the I am that washes the dishes. It's the I am that kisses their boyfriend or girlfriend. It's the I am that takes a walk in the park. It's the I am that writes an email. I am that I am. So now take another nice deep breath, conscious breath. Feel it going in. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and let that information into the attention. But notice you haven't gone anywhere. You are always here. Well, that's a great note to end on. Anybody has any final comments they'd like to make, or the like? I just want to say good night. There's a delay here, so I have to wait to see things show up, because there can actually be 20 or 30-second delay between when I say something and when you hear it, right? And then actually type something back. So it can be 20, 40 seconds. So I hope that helped you, Lalit. Uh, uh, there's no need for the the time as a seeker to be elongated. Doesn't it doesn't actually take time at all. As you can see, we went right there. Thank you. So, as I mentioned, there's no special place where the replay lives. Please like it and share it. Recommend it on Facebook to others. Not everybody's capable of hanging out for 2 hours and listening to this. And I'll be doing these again. I'll just keep doing this a couple times a week at least, plus some meditations, like shorter periods of meditations that I've been doing, kind of spontaneously popping up. I'll just keep doing this as long as as long as this circumstance continues, and which in fact is actually, this is just one wave of many that are to come. So it's going to be another decade or so that we're going to be in this. So I'll just be doing my best to keep it up. Again, thank you for those who have been supporting me. Remember, there's satsang every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. The next one of these, I will do it earlier in the day, right? Because I know my European friends have a hard time, but I also wanted to give a time where people from Australia, South Africa, and the like, which are very different time zones, to be able to do. I think India is even like 12 hours ahead. So this is a little early for them, but not too bad. so anyway, dear friends, yeah. Let me close with this. It's a wonderful poem, and it's another great one for you to ponder, Lalit. I love this poem. I say it a lot. It's from a Chinese mystic by the name of Lin Po. It's very short. It's only 4 lines long, but it really sums up what we've been talking about here and what was in the meditation. The bird disappears into the sky. The cloud dissolves, it drains. We sit together, the mountain and I, until only the mountain remains. Good night, good day. Love to you all.